It's been a pleasure, Turf. Like I said, I watched your videos before, and it's just nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
Microphone to
Likewise.
microphone.
Yeah, it's and it's also just really nice knowing that there's now another awesome voice, talking to I guess hitting back against these people a little bit, it's it makes me more optimistic for the future of YouTube and the fandom space, so that's awesome.
I actually have a video that came out today or last night. I'd like to see if we could kind of watch a little bit of it while we got all these heavy hitters on the panel here. You guys cool with watching this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's like, I want you to see how fucking insidious this shit is. Let's see. But yeah, so this is a Nerdrotic video, and he doesn't do these very often from what I can tell. I don't watch them on a regular basis, but something told me this was going to be kind of a different one. And it is different from a lot of the stuff I've seen him do. And I think it's kind of just like something he has to kind of do to like update the fucking narrative now and then or something.
Amazon has my sympathy. You have people like me making a video about you. You have the SJWs circling. You announced this show 3 years ago and you haven't even finished a test pilot. Now you're so desperate you might bring in Bad Robot to help finish it. Don't. But if you do, instead of that word egalitarian, you can expect intersectional feminism. And instead of fidelity to Tolkien, you'll get current year politics mixed in with a few lies to the fandom, and it will be a divided fan base. And if you go Game of Thrones, everybody will be pissed off. But why should you care? You're a $1 trillion company.
I just want to pause it for 1 second. Is he just have like a list of like
Nice
big
frame.
words that he uses at the beginning of his videos to make people think that they're listening to some intellectual person? I mean, it's like intersectional fibonacci, blah, 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 like all these phrases and terms that he uses over and over and over again. Like you were saying, Birdman, in your video about repeating something to the point where it just becomes like common and you hear it and it gets embedded in your mind.
Sermonic
And
repetition.
Yeah.
And
I feel like they've got these buzzwords that they just use in the beginning of every video that signed up that like comforts the viewers that they have on their channels into like getting ready to receive whatever it is they're going to say to them.
Well, yeah, it's called the illusory truth effect. It's a real thing in psychology. It's you repeat a thing often enough, people will start to believe it. They'll even start to have false memories. It's even associated with believing people who have like easy to pronounce names, like things. It's really crazy, and it's very interesting actually. There's been so many studies done on this. So yeah, like they'll repeat these phrases and words and buzz terms. And people just start to believe it, and that's where the bad writing thing comes from.
Yeah.
Like you hear so many people say bad writing because it's been repeated so often, but they can't explain it when you actually challenge them on that.
Yeah. Can we get away from this frame now?
Yes. It's a worse frame.
By the way, this video, I want to go over even just the details of like how this video is titled and everything, because I think it's very specifically done for this reason. So like, it's called "Let's Talk About."
Yep.
So he's got that Taco About thing in there, which was a big hit for him last year. So he's pulling that out, which I'm sure he only does whenever he really wants to make sure that a lot of people fucking watch the video. I think, you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, there's the Taco About it joke, right?
Yeah. Is that the reason why he's playing the bugles or the trumpet?
So did you see it when Blue Beetle came out and he
is very racist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's talk about Blue Beetle. It's like
Flexing is gay. flexing is really gay, but I will point out, and most of you who watched my videos early on, I predicted the mess that the Rings of Power would be. Not because I'm some genius, not because I'm Nerdstradamus, just because I know the source material and I saw the patterns in other stuff in Doctor Who and everything. Oh, they're going to do the same thing here. They're going to make Galadriel a warrior and put her in armor, and boom. It's that predictable. And I'm not the only one, by the way, who predicted this stuff. It was pretty easy to predict if you were covering pop culture at that time. So it's weaved its way into the scripts. It's weaved its way into all of our social media. It's weaved its way into our school, into every facet.
What is it?
Yeah, that's a dog whistle, apparently. The message or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I mean, it's talked about like it's some kind of, I think, just fucking poison.
Pennywise.
Well, it takes me back to the Alan Richson video that you showed at the beginning, where instead of saying black or gay or woman or trans or whatever, it's all wrapped up into one word because it makes it easier to swallow. It's a pill that you can swallow that doesn't make you feel like a piece of shit while you're also being a piece of shit.
The word woke has come to be a substitute for whatever we hate the most, whatever we despise the most, whatever we vilify, whatever we want to rally around, whatever our monster is, that is the woke. How can woke go to die? Well, we don't want to say it because it's gross to say. I would like gay people to go die in Florida. We will wipe them out. Or transgendered people will get wiped out in Florida. Blacks, we're going to wipe them out in Florida. See, we can't say that, so we substitute it with an abusive word like woke.
You can accept the fact that you're a racist if you don't call it racism.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not a bigot. I just hate wokeness.
Right. It's just bad writing, bro. But I do want to say that also, did you see where he snuck in schools in there? We're talking about entertainment media. And he goes from that into like children, because it's that whole fallacy of like, what about the kids? What about the children? It's this thing that's kind of been sort of wound in to their grift now, is that they seem to be caring about kids while also making content and media that is not age gated on YouTube that can be easily searchable, that promotes all of the stuff that they say isn't appropriate for children.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's part of that political side that they're trying to sneak in, or not really sneak in. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but it's that whole right-wing talking point that they're trying to indoctrinate your children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All while they're doing it as well. But they're like, look over there. Look what they're doing. Look what they're doing.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
The great Oz has spoken.
Who are you?
Every institution, every fucking major corporation, Am I Racist exposes this. It exposes something we've been talking about for years, but it gets it to more people, and I'm absolutely happy it does that. So yes, every Star Trek Discovery episode.
I just want to say real quick, fuck Mat Walsh.
Well,
throw that out there.
I also want to point out he seems to be okay when their indoctrination gets out to more people, because that's exactly what that was. It's a propaganda movie full of indoctrinative stuff. And he seems to be quite fine when Mat Walsh is doing that, and everybody should watch that, but don't watch the other stuff that would allow you to have a brain and opinion of your own. You have to only watch the stuff that I'm telling you to watch. It's really crazy shit.
And every red carpet interview where they're out there really pushing the narrative that racism is worse than like race relations are worse than they are in the 60s, and racism still exists, when basically there's more of a market for anti-racism than there is of actual racism. But the thing is,
newsflash, you wouldn't need anti-racist marketing if racism didn't exist.
Bro, look at our fucking channel compared to his. We've been doing fucking, anti-racism content for years in some cases, and I still got 7,300 subscribers.
I mean, I just have to wonder, why is he offended by anti-racism? I think most people are fine with anti-racism.
I would think comparing levels of racism and trying to determine whether or not it causes more harm based on an era that we no longer live in, like focus on today. Like, does racism still exist? Yes. Okay, well, we need to take care of that. We need to handle that shit.
He says it doesn't.
But somehow there's anti-racism content. How can you have anti-racism content if racism doesn't exist? That doesn't make any sense.
That's the point.
How is that a market?
Yeah,
it's the narrative, man.
One just needs to go to Twitter to find out if racism exists. Like, come on, man.
You're getting it wrong. That's just
Wait, do
free
you mean
speech, man.
Nazi Central?
I also want to point out, like, I know that I don't remember whose review I watched, but somebody was talking about how this film is almost, it's like, not only is it just propaganda and bullshit, but there's no way that he's really trying to look like someone else. It's literally just him with a wig on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh
like,
wait, he's trying to look like someone else in this.
Well, so apparently they also like
that's Mat Walsh. Oh my God.
But apparently they like coach people or urge them to like say slurs or something like that, and then they cut that part out and just leave the part in where they actually say something offensive or whatever, and they're like, aha, you're the racist.
I don't, you know, I'm no fan of Sacha Baron Cohen. I'm not like a huge fan of his, but at least he went to the effort of trying to be someone different in his film, so it didn't look like it was him. This is just literally Mat Walsh with the same wig he wore in like that fucking Lady Ballers movie. It's literally,
and then he wore to the DNC as well.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
Matt Walsh exposes the actual racism that still totally exists in this country. See, because racism's indiscriminate. It's indiscriminate. It's
so
very
when it does
inclusive.
exist, wait a minute,
Racism has become very diverse and inclusive. No surprise, the country is divided because that's what they wanted to do. They talk about other.
Is that some echo posting? Some three parentheses going around that or what?
The anti-racists.
It's this weird thing where like conspiracy theory has wrapped up with like indoctrination now, and all of it sort of circles the same drain. Like I want to hear the X-Files theme in the background when he says that. Like
you saw how they love Alex Jones. He loves them. You know, they've been on several streams with him now at this point. Makes sense. You know,
it's also plausible deniability because he can just say that's not who I was talking about. You know what I mean? Like that's not what I meant when I said that. Okay, bro.
It's Weasley.
I also want to add that Gary here has also done many streams of someone who's now a known Russian asset.
Yep,
that's
Benny Johnson. Surprise, surprise.
They have been othering conservatives, libertarians, Christians for a long time. And now they got to a point where they didn't just come out and say it, but back around 2016, they started to come out and say it. There's a point in Am I Racist to get a little ahead where they're talking to Race to Dinner. And the woman says, I'm an anti-racist. We need to abolish whiteness. That's a quote. We need to abolish whiteness. And she's one of two people who say that in the movie. Open.
I want to point out also that his fear of erasing what whiteness is the same fear that every single marginalized community has when they listen to content like this. Because him saying that erasing whiteness is a fear of his, while also campaigning against every queer person in media, every black person in media, every woman in media, he wants their community wants to erase that from visibility. So this whole idea that that's not what people think or feel, and like it's almost like, is there a cognitive dissonance with him, or is he aware of how this parallels all of their talking points? Is he even aware of that? I mean,
don't know, man.
I mean, when you have an IQ that can be counted on a Ninja Turtle's hand, I don't think he realizes it.
Yeah.
No.
Unapologetically. And there's so much fucking hate. And these people look about as fun as a colonoscopy. It's something Jar Jar Abrams said back in 2020 while cities were burning. Enough white comfort. Their whole thing was to disrupt, and it's not just white, by the way, it's middle class. They say white.
Oh, they have to expand. That he has to expand it beyond whiteness.
Well, for the few people of color that buy into this shit. But also, I just there's this photo. I don't know what to make of this, man, but like, it seems kind of sus to me. Sorry.
Damn.
I don't know who added. I think Dane added the X-Files music. But that was great.
I was just gonna say, like, that was so perfectly placed because I thought it was him playing. Holy shit.
Middle class. They want to disrupt the comfort of the middle class.
I mean, the middle class is basically non-existent at this point, man. Jesus Christ.
I want to say this: the middle class is not mostly white people. Like, I mean, I hate to break it to him. Most of the people that he associates with at the top end are making way more money than like middle class money. So.
This fucking full-on Trump out and proud Trump voter is fucking trying to, cape for the middle class, despite, when Trump was in
have
office.
to fear for me. Look at my massive house and all of these things I own, but we're so afraid. Like, give me a break.
Trump cut taxes for billionaires and not the middle class, man. Like, it's so frustrating.
Of the working man. They want them to be on their back foot all the time. They want them to be defending themselves.
I'm sorry, I have to pause it one more time. The working man. What does he do for a living? He sits in front of his desk and talks on a microphone. And look, I get it. We all do this, right? But I'm not going to pretend that this is harder than somebody going to a factory and fucking making machine parts all day. Like, it's just not. Yeah. It's not even the same thing. You know what I mean? Like,
look, he's got
silly rabbit. I have to adjust all my figurines in the background. That's hard work.
It's labor.
Look, you got to give it to him, man. He says the same shit over and over again. He's got to find a way to keep it interesting, keep it fresh. You know what I mean? That's a challenge, I bet.
Real quick before we dive into this, I just want to bring up something real fast. So here's a list of some of the Russian goals they were doing when they were buying internet content. Two of the big ones here: risk of job loss for white Americans, privileges for people of color, perverts, and disabled. These are the types of arguments they want to push forward. The Russians do in American culture.
Well, what are you trying to say here, Bob?
I'm trying to say it's interesting how the stuff Gary's saying in particular in this video seems to ally with Russian goals.
Well, so there was another video he put out last year that somebody told me that it seems like it was kind of like an audition kind of video. It was very different from his usual content, and it was like specifically scripted and edited and stuff like that. And it's just like, man, this every once in a while he does something like that, and you just have to wonder. I don't know. I don't see any evidence that he's like a Russian asset or anything. I think it's more likely that
he is, but
the shit that he says is useful to Russia. What Russia Putin wants. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, he could just be a byproduct of all of the Russian propaganda. I mean, there's a possibility there's channels
that started in the chans and stuff like that out in the bowels of the internet.
He's just the downstream of the content that he's been engaging with, which is a lot of political.
That's that plausible deniability that we're talking about, is that he can just say that. He could say, no,
absolutely.
I was radicalized. Like, I'm not being paid by Russia,
but
even though
he would have to pick another grift, though. He'd have to figure something out after that and pick a different one. What would it be next? I have no idea.
I covered a Tenet video after all this broke. I covered a Tenet video where it was Benny Johnson, Eric July, and Chris Gore. And what's the interesting thing about that video is Benny Johnson doesn't say a whole lot in it. Right. He just had Eric July and Chris Gore on there, and they're gabbing about how woke movies are and whatever, how The Acolyte sucks. And Benny Johnson's just there posting on Tenet Media.
If you didn't notice it in the intro, the reason that I concluded that kind of extended clip of them on his show for his 2 million subscriber, rolling over to 2 million subscribers, like, that's a special event, man. That's somebody you're going to invite people that, the people that are there right there when you hit 2 million subs, they must be special people to you, right? And you got Gary. You got fucking Jeremy Griggs, and you got Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, that's interesting, kind of panel to have on for that moment, man. I don't know. This is all the times that they've been, kind of crossed over content together in just the last year or so.
But could you imagine, say, for example, we were able to have someone on our podcast here that was connected to politics at all, someone progressive. Could you imagine how we would get raked across the coals for doing that? But they constantly do it, and it's just okay. They don't want to take any responsibility.
Vivek Ramaswamy on Friday Night Tights.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, Birdman, like, do you see this thing right here, that New Woke Order documentary kind of thing? We did some digging into that several months back and found that, like, this Nerd Wars is just it's an Info Wars thing. Like this,
I think I saw a video about that, like, where what was it called, Into the Griftverse or something like that?
Oh yeah, the Pillar of Garbage has been doing some excellent work there with that stuff. Yeah. But yeah,
where is Pilar today? He's normally in
here. He's probably making videos and shit. He does.
I want to also point out that Pop Culture Crisis, which is another kind of chuddy podcast, is funded by Tim Pool. It's a Timcast production. So all of them seem to have their little offshoot like fandom content now.
Removing men ruined Hollywood because men just aren't in movies anymore, man. It's crazy. There's just not any fucking men in movies.
And they're showing a picture of Snow White, a character from a woman-led story, saying that removing men ruined Hollywood.
Oh, and then look at this. Nerd Wars, the woke apocalypse featuring Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers, the Critical Drinker, Benny Johnson. Weird.
Eric, I don't know what you're talking about. I was excited for the Snow White movie starring Chris Pratt.
Exactly. That's my whole point. Like they're showing so they want to remove women because that story's always had a woman as a lead. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like literally the people that consume this media have to be some of the most mush-brain motherfuckers on the planet. Like
they don't know how to think for themselves, that's for sure. And they're scared of everything that's different and new, and so they have to have somebody, that's going to tell them, well, I guess they want somebody that's going to tell them it's all terrible and it's all going to kill you, and they're trying to hurt you and stuff like that.
They have to have these figureheads though. Like I think didn't she say something they didn't like or something like that? I don't remember what her quote
Rachel
was.
Zegler. She in a red carpet with her and Gal Gadot, she was talking about the upcoming movie, and she said they were changing the story because they felt like it was dated and they wanted to make the story more reflective of like a more modern version of Snow White, because the movie is from 100 years ago. So
and the dude literally just like he fucking kisses her while she's sleeping. There's just not great connotations involved with that.
I would argue it's a hard movie to remake anyway, which is why it was kind of weird they were going to do that. But I mean, they're bringing it back and it's whatever. But between that and the fake pictures of like the 7 people that were supposed to be the 7 dwarves or whatever at that time, they just started to get a hate boner for the movie. And
did Disney troll them with that, man? Like,
I feel like it might have been a troll, but I will also say that they went to the trouble of pulling up a video of her from almost a year ago, where she was talking about, I believe it was Hunger Games, and they tried to frame it like she made it as a response to their criticism of her as Snow White. So they were sharing it as a it wasn't a fake video, but the video was being framed as a video about something it wasn't, and a lot of them spread that, and then they never recanted it. They all of them know it's not real, but they never took the videos down. They never did a follow-up and said we were wrong about that.
Didn't they do that before? Like they've done that before. I'm having a brain fart about like who they did that about.
They did that kind of recently with Amanda Steinberg and the Acolyte. Yeah, they had that old Daily Show clip where she says something about how it's about making white men uncomfortable. And she's not talking about the fucking Acolyte. She's talking about what the hate you give.
I'll tell you the plot. It's a story of a young girl played by yourself who is friends with a young boy who gets shot at a police stop. A story that we're all too familiar with.
And so far, it's been really successful. We have a lot of white people crying after, which is great. I've never seen so many white people crying before. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, but also, like, what sense would it make to say that about the Acolyte? That's the thing that I don't understand. Yeah. They come up with this story like, oh, she said she wants to make white men uncomfortable because of the Acolyte.
Yeah, they don't.
What does that even mean?
They don't fact check the people they're following, and I'm talking about their audience. They could just say whatever the fuck they want, and they just get away with it. And that's, I think, the most frustrating thing for me as a person who like. I like evidence. I like to see like 1 + 1 = 2, and I like to see exactly how it equals 2. You know what I mean? So like that's what's really frustrating for me, is that they'll just say something and people just accept it. I'll never understand that.
Birdman, I don't know if you saw or not, but both Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic have been on Access Media shows, but yet they say Access Media is bad. They've done that constantly, and they've done interviews and roundtable discussions with Access Media recently. And when I pointed that out in a video, they're like, "Oh, but it's different when it's them," and that's when you know they have people locked in. That's when you know that people are willing to do anything for them, because they're willing to compromise the indoctrination these channels have done to them about like anything other than us, anything other than our group telling you things. They're all liars. And so they can go out and do these Access Media interviews and things like that. They've been on Piers Morgan a couple times now.
I did see that. I did see that.
And so it's...
Yeah, because they didn't know what to do whenever that one guy was kind of spitting some facts at him. And they're just like, they look all indignant. They didn't have any arguments, though.
So there's a lot of misinformation. And I think the issue is that no one here is actually really reading the real strategy. The problem is several things. There's a missing implication. There has been arguably films that were super successful. Black Panther had a predominantly Black cast, not all Black cast, and made $1.3 billion at the box office and had a really successful sequel. The reality is that when you start saying woke or DEI, there's another implication there where you're implying in many ways that what is the opposite of lack of diversity in those films? It's feeding to an all white cast or majority white cast and a lack of diversity. I don't think that that's what Disney's trying to do, and I don't think that's what Hollywood should do because it doesn't reflect the society we live in. However, what's missing in this conversation is that the reason why a lot of these films are not doing as well is because many of them are spinoffs, sequels, or there's just overall fatigue in the market where people want original stories. So I do think that rather than try to make this a culture war, which really it isn't, it's more of a change in taste from the audiences and what they want. Let's keep it 100. Pixar has not really made too many original films that have really been able to be fully marketed. And there's been an oversaturation of them. There's an oversaturation of Marvel. But if you look at other films elsewhere, there has seemed to be a trend of liking diversity, TV shows, streaming platforms. And so it seems to be a little bit intellectually dishonest to frame it in this way.
Because they have a script. That's it. They have a script. If you've ever watched Friday Night Tights, it's become so I don't know. It feels like a TV show production because they all clap at the same time and stuff. It's a weird show now.
And we've been talking to people that are like kind of out of their audience recently. You know what I mean? Like guys, there's one guy in particular that first he went to your channel, Eric, and then I had a conversation with him on mine a couple of weeks ago where he's a conservative, he's an older guy, but he was like part of their audience generally, and like him and some other guys, they started noticing the formulaic nature of their shows and like how it's all just kind of forced in a way, ironically, because they used to talk about forced diversity and shit.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.